Hello and welcome to my shop. This video I'm going to be installing some of the new Z1 high lift hood struts on my 2005 350Z. This is going to be a little different from a standard install because I already have a set of struts on these, but they're not the high lift, and one of my struts is blown anyways. But I will go through the process of installing these, and I will kind of mention what it would be if you only had the hood prop. So I'm going to get the hood up, move the camera around, and we'll go ahead and get things started. Tools required for this install, nothing too crazy, but you do need a Dremel and or a drill. You are going to have to be modifying a couple of pieces of plastic. Otherwise, you're going to need some prying tools to remove some of the plastic body clips. You will also need a 10mm and 12mm socket, maybe an extension or two, and potentially a wrench, 10mm, for installing one of the stud balls. Other than that, maybe a marking utensil and, as I said, some bits for your drill or grinder. Now that I've got the hood up, I said disregard, I already have one set of struts on this car, but I'm going to be replacing them. To start out, we're going to be having to remove this piece of plastic as well as modifying it, so you can remove the cover, set it someplace out of the way. The next step is we have to remove the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plastic push pin fasteners. You can use either a flathead screwdriver or some kind of pry tool to get to these. Just be very careful of your paint. These things, especially if they're old, they may crack. I have broken a few of them, more than a few of them in the past. So just be careful as you pop these loose. Don't drop them down into your engine bay or anything like that. Once you've got all the plastic push pins out, you can simply remove this. The seal here is hooked on another piece of plastic. You just need to pull it up in the back. Slide this out and set it aside for later. This Z1 kit comes with, I said, one new ball stud as well as one new bracket. These happen to mount in the same place as my old kit did. If you did not have one installed previously, there is a fender bolt right here. It's the one that's right at the end of your kind of strut tower area. This is normally a 10mm hex bolt, and then this bracket here will go up on your two hood mount fasteners. I'm going to go ahead and remove this strut and remove this one bolt, and then we'll talk about installing the first stud. I removed my bracket, as I said. In your case, this would be a 10mm bolt. Installing the stud is very simple. It just simply threads into the original hole. This is designed for a 10mm hex on here. You would need a deep socket, but you need one that doesn't have any restrictions in it. Unfortunately, the only one I have here, it has a restriction and it hits the ball before it gets down to the hex. So I'm going to use a box end 10mm wrench here. Torque spec on this is 10 foot-pounds, which is pretty high, but don't go crazy on it. Big thing, watch your paint, especially if you're using a wrench like this. So I'm going to call that good. So the next step is going to be removing the two 10mm nuts here. You're going to need a deep socket. Watch your paint once again as you do this. You do need to remove both nuts at the same time. If you have somebody handy to help hold your hood in place, it is kind of helpful to make sure that nothing moves as you do this. But as I said, I'm going to go ahead and remove these two, and then we'll talk about reinstalling. One quick correction before I reinstall this. Those are 12mm nuts, not 10mm nuts. So before installing this, both brackets, they provided the same. You want the stud facing away from the engine compartment. Go ahead and align it and get the fastener started. You do need to pay some attention here. When I removed this, the hood did start to separate from the hinge. So as you snug these back up, you can actually see where the paint. You can kind of see a paint line where your hood hinge was. You do need to make sure that it does line back up, and you will need to just double check when you close your hood after doing this install that you don't have any points of contact. So I'm going to go ahead, snug these up. Torque spec for these bolts is 108 inch-pounds or 9 foot-pounds. Now that that's in place, I'm going to go ahead and work on installing the strut on this side. That'll make installing the one on the other side easier. So there are two different ends to this. The end that attaches to the ball on the fender is just a simple push and snap. The other end, there is a small clip. You need to push the clip away, and then there it will actually slide. How easy this is to see. It actually does slide out. Set this aside and make sure that you do not lose it. You will need to reinstall it later. On the fender side, it's just a simple push down. That's now in place. You will need to rotate the strut in order to make sure it aligns with the hood. And in my case, it will take two hands. You will need to pull in on it, compress the cylinder a little bit, and install it on the ball on the hood hinge. The pin slides back in, going from the front of the vehicle towards the rear of the vehicle. And once fully installed, make sure that it goes in straight, and then it will pop back around and lock in place. And that is what keeps, make sure that this ball does not pop back off. Not the easiest to see, but you can see right here the clip is back around the ball stud. One more thing I do want to just kind of make sure that you can see, as I said, there is this pin that goes in. There is a hole on the body side. There is a mating hole on the top side. When you put this pin in, you need to make sure that it is all the way across and into the pinhole on the other side. It's very easy to get this crooked and end up looking like this without going into the cross hole. So just make sure that you get this taken care of and do this properly. One more quick thing to note on the struts and putting that pin in. If you're having a lot of trouble getting one of the pins in, pull the ball piece out and inspect the inside. My driver's side one had a piece of metal lodged in there, and the ball wasn't all the way on. I could not get the pin in until I removed that piece of metal. Before we move on to the next step, I am going to test close the hood, make sure that the struts clear everything on the way down. At this point, you can double check and make sure that you haven't created any major gaps or caused any major issues. At this point, the hood closed all the way, so I'm going to go ahead and put the hood back up. And you can already see the hood is way higher than it was before. It's going to be so much easier to work on this. So the next step before we can reinstall the plastic pieces, there's now a stud in the way of where this goes. On these pieces, there is an area where there was already kind of a relief where the bolt goes. We need to radius this out to make sure that it clears the ball stud. So I'm going to go take it over. I'm going to go mark it over here on the hood. So as you can see, as I said, the stud is in the way right here of being able to reinstall this cover. I'm going to take a Sharpie and just kind of mark roughly where I need a clearance. I'm just going to put a kind of a half moon in there. I'm not going to go all the way out to the outside of this kind of molded piece. It's not necessary, but I'm going to go ahead and clearance this out with a Dremel tool, and then we'll come back and fit it up. So I've now Dremeled clearance for the stud for both of these panels on both sides. You can go as crazy as you want on this. My Z is not a show car. I want it to look good, but it's not critical. The big thing is to make sure that it does fully clear and that you can realign this panel. At this point, all you need to do is reinstall the push pins in the 5 locations, then reinstall your cover, and that's it. Said overall pretty easy install other than having to modify those 2 plastic panels. As you can see from before, from the original video, the hood is much higher now. It'll be a lot easier to work. The other benefit to having these high lift struts, or any struts as opposed to the factory strut bar, if you're at the track, if you're at a car show and wind catches your hood, it can pull it off of the normal rod with the studs in place, or with the struts in place. That doesn't happen. So I'm really looking forward to being able to use this in the future. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. I've got plenty more work to do on this in the off season. I've got some other how-to videos that I'll be doing on the GTR over there as well. Tune in for more track videos and things like that. Once again, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.